So the house belonging to the drug dealer David Waldron has sold in recent days at auction. And they got €522,000 for it. This is a house down in Wexford, which is a bargain given Irish property prices. And the fact that this mansion of his cost 1.6 million to build, refurbish, and put in the best of the best into it. But it's a huge loss for him. And actually, if you add up the properties that have sold now belonging to him, that were seized under the proceeds of crime case, it's over €1 million has gone into the state coffers.
Yeah,
and there it'll sludge around and probably pay for something else.
Yeah, I mean, look, it is one of the big successes, I think, for CAB to just dismantle people, I suppose, professional drug dealers, people that have made a lot of money and been at the forefront of organised crime really for 2 decades. To see all of their gains wiped out is, it is a good moment. I mean, obviously it's a house in a place called Darview in County Wexford, and it seems almost naive that he thought he could get away with it, does it?
It does, really. I mean, yeah, build it in Spain and you probably would have got away with it and also got better weather, wouldn't you?
You would have now, but I mean, I suppose when we look back in the history of the house, and there's a lot of complicated, ins and outs gone into the buying of it and how it was paid for, but eventually they catch up with you, and we've seen again and again, once the forensic accountants get in and they start seeing even the little bits of spend, and we've had a lot of cases that have come down to guys saying, well, I got a compensation claim and that's how I bought the house. And it just hasn't washed when it gets to court under that sort of intense forensic investigation, because they then get said, well, how come you could afford to go for a holiday to Mexico at the same time? Where did that money come from? And it just really, really quickly unravels. And it certainly unravelled in this case.
Yeah, so this house, and I remember the first time going down to find it, and it was at the time it had been identified by the Criminal Assets Bureau. I think an architect who'd been involved in designing it while Waldron himself was in prison had been questioned by the Criminal Assets Bureau. I think they had searched his premises for some of the documents in relation to it. And I spoke to him at the time. He said to me that he didn't know anything about David Waldron, who he was, anything, that he took the job basically on, merit, that it was in his local area. Yep. This house is actually in Gorey, in the Gorey countryside, and it's called Darview Heights. But it was built over 3 stories, and we've spoken before about how he had a man den in it. There was stables outside and a sort of an equestrian ring for show jumping. So he was doing the John Gilligan on it. So many years later, and having watched, I suppose, the Criminal Assets Bureau go after, criminal after criminal after criminal. There's few winners when it comes to the CAB, especially when they take these proceeds of crime cases. The revenue cases, sometimes they take longer, and you have to dispose of your assets before they get their hands on the money. But Waldron, this was his kind of trophy property, and he fought this case. His wife claimed some ownership of it from an inheritance that she had got from her own father, and I think he claimed that legitimate funds had gone into building it. But he also lost a 4-bed house in Leixlip, and that has just sold in recent days as well for $415,000, which is... by nature of the address there, obviously Leixlip is closer to Dublin and properties are obviously going to be more expensive there. But, it's 100,000 less than this land, this landed mansion really in Wexford. But also an apartment in Carlow, which wasn't linked actually to Waldron, but which sold in recent days, got 186,000. I mean, there's a lot of money coming in there, isn't there?
There's a lot of money. And if you think about the property in Leixlip, I mean, one of the most amazing things that came out during the proceedings was that Waldron was still renting that out as the case went through the courts, and he was getting €6,450 a month in rent. And I think he certainly had up to 13 tenants living in the house. So it just shows you, I suppose, if you do manage to get your hands on a bit of property, how much money you can make.
Well, what does someone like Waldron do now? So he's been stripped of that. He still has the home he lives in, right?
Yeah.
his brother has lost items as well and assets to the Criminal Assets Bureau.
And a house in Cabra as well.
Another house, yeah. Christopher Git Waldron. So how do they start again at this stage of life building up assets? Because when you're making money, you want to really put some of it away, the older you get in particular.
Yeah, I mean, I think, so these guys, the Waldrons are both in their 40s. I mean, they're really from the generation, the Eamon Dunn would have been their contemporary, and they would have sort of grown up knowing people in the Marlow Highland gang, let's put it that way. So they're in the 40s. So are the next generation of criminal ever going to attempt to buy a house in Ireland? I don't think they will. We've seen now...
But you obviously got these guys who think they can beat the system, don't you? I mean, you'll always have those guys.
But I think we're going to get to a point now where the next generation of criminals, and if you look at criminals, it kind of goes in 10-year cycles. So there'll be guys in their 30s now who maybe with the bit of the demise of the Kinahan cartel will they'll be the next generation. We have the family gang members. A lot of them are of a similar vintage than the Waldrons. So there will be a younger generation again, and then there's another younger generation in their 20s. I don't think any of them people will do what the generation before did, which was ultimately attempt to buy property in Ireland, attempt to register as company owners. A lot of the guys we've spoken about, like the Waldrons and their contemporaries, if you go back and see them in the late 90s or 2000s, they all were company directors of some type. You know, people like Ross Browning, many others. They would have attempted to legitimise their money.
Hide in plain sight.
Hide in plain sight.
And of course, the guarantee was stick it in the wife's name.
Stick it in the wife's name.
Or the girlfriend's name or something. And that was just,
exactly. So they had a few
simple,
roads.
but that's not.
No.
Because we're seeing more and more that is, firstly, women are being brought before the courts on a huge level for money laundering offences. And secondly, they are managing to untangle that ownership thing to show that, and to name these people, be they the wives or girlfriends, the wags, as respondents in the case.
Exactly. Because if you look back at when people bought these properties, it was around 2010, say, on average. You had people like Liam Byrne was also a registered director of a company, Sean McGovern, and exactly as you said, they attempted to generate legitimate income. They also attempted to have a degree of a genuine footprint, and then they attempted to buy properties, often disguising the ownership and disguising the source of the funds. They are, as well, people like the compo claim or something along those lines where you'd have a justification for owning it, for having a certain amount of money. And that was believed to be enough to disguise it. Unlike John Gilligan, who literally said, I won it all on the horses. So that's that generation. This next generation, I don't think you're going to see them buy property in Ireland at all. I think if we're looking at...
all our drug money is going to be funneled out of the country into another economy?
Yeah, I think so. And I think you're going to see...
Depends on the level of sophistication, in fairness, though, as well.
It does, but how sophisticated do you need to be, for example, to go to cryptocurrency?
Yeah,
and that type of...
I was going to say crypto, a bit more sophisticated than me, but yes, that is definitely the future of money laundering through that.
I think that's...
And it's becoming a safer place, I think, by all accounts.
Yeah, I mean, there are risks, obviously, in cryptocurrency in that the value of it has shot up and down all over the place in time. But I think even in the most recent seizures, including in as part of the Ghost Network, there was cryptocurrency seized in Ireland. There is cryptocurrency being seized on a relatively regular basis. We had an amazing case of a cannabis dealer who had, I can't remember the exact figure, you wrote about it before, he had millions and millions in cryptocurrency.
You're going to ask me the exact figure?
No, well,
31 million's coming to...
Something like that.
Actually, but the thing was that
he bought it at the right time.
He bought it at the right time, and it was increasing. It was all stuck in a digital wallet somewhere with this sort of code that had been lost, put into a trash bin or something, and gone. And they were hoping that money's still, I think, sitting there in that digital wallet, or that crypto is still sitting there. And one day technology will catch up, and you'll be able to somehow open these digital wallets without the code.
So, I mean, look, that is
the great big hope.
Yeah, see, that is, of course,
it's like cash in the attic for the Irish. It's a bit like our Google money, or
it is a bit like the Apple money.
The Apple money, rather.
Yeah. So I think you're gonna this next generation, and I mean, if you look back in time, even Daniel Kinahan was a registered company director, and the Kinahans also were registering companies in the UK in the early 2000s. But all of that now, I think, will come to an end. Certainly, we've seen how much easier it is to move money around the globe anyway. And on the other side of that, of course, is that
you can't enjoy it.
You can't enjoy it. And also then it's, how reliable is the location that you put it in. So if you move, you can probably get, they're not going to trace your money to Russia, but are you going to take a chance on putting it in a Russian bank, for example? I mean, the CAB aren't going to be able to get it out of that bank, but will you be able to get it out either? I mean, that is the serious risk. So I think you're seeing the technical skill of money laundering is going to become increasingly important. And then are they going to even be able to, is cash, cash is not king anymore either.
So it makes it so much more traceable. But look, I mean, you heard it here first, guys. It's a nightmare now to launder your money. And please don't be buying property in the Irish market. It's going to get taken and somebody's going to get a bargain.
Yeah.
So anyway...
and your holiday to Marbella will be held over you for the rest of your life by forensic accountants from CAB who are, however scary a police officer is, I'd say they have more nightmares about forensic accountants.
Well, look, none of us like to be hitting the pockets.
No,
I mean, that's the end of the day. You don't like even getting a fine.
No.
So David Waldron, house gone, sold under the hammer, 522. Nice price for somebody who's bought it.
Yes.
Thanks, Niall.
Thanks, Nicola.
I'm Nicola Tallant and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.